I greet the respected subscribers and guests of the channel in the comments under the video. On this channel, subscribers have repeatedly asked to tell about the fates of the crown thieves on the internet. You can find existing videos and articles on this topic, however they were made, to put it mildly, without understanding this very topic. For example, in Proshliak, such thieves as Det Hassan Tariarla need a mirror, Biangvi lads and other thieves who, in fact, were not deprived of the thief's crown are easily recorded in them. This confusion arose due to the fact that in the post-Soviet thieves world there was two major splits, which are usually called the War of the Thieves clans. The first in the late 90s, when the thieves movement split into the clans of Det Hassan and the Aganov brothers. The second in the mid-noughties, when the thieves again split into two camps. This time, the clan of Toriel Eniani and Marabdish Angvalads versus the clan of Det Hassan. As a result of numerous gatherings and mutual accusations, each of the warring parties declared the leaders of the opposing side not to be thieves. But since both sides were supported by authoritative thieves, including those who did not belong to either clan, none of these decisions was finally approved by the thieves community. Since the thieves world became largely commercialized in the 90s, such mutual decrownings, motivated by the struggle for spheres of influence, have become the norm. I will tell you about thieves whose decrownings were accepted by the entire thieves community, or at least by the majority of it, after which they retired or died without having time to regain their thieves title. This video is about the 10 most famous uncrowned thieves. Alexander Severov is known far beyond the criminal world. Sever gained wide fame, firstly, thanks to Mikhail Krog's song Vladimirsky Central, which, according to legend, Krog dedicated to Sever. The original version of the chorus allegedly sounded like this: Vladimirsky Central Sasher 70. After listening to the song, Sever thanked Krog but asked to remove his name from the song because he believed that a thief would have no use for such words. After which, instead of Sasher, the word wind appeared in the lyrics of Vladimirsky Central. Secondly, Sever became known to a wider audience thanks to the numerous interviews he gave on television. But, contrary to rumors, he did not lose his thief's title for this reason. Severov's decrowning was the result of a long-standing conflict between Sever and another Tver thief, Sergei Kamenev, aka Volkov, aka Kavyazin, also known by the nicknames Kamenei or Volchak. Despite the fact that the name Sever is often associated with Tver, he is not a native of this city. Sever sat down in Tver after another release from the camp and soon became the overseer of this region. However, he was not the only one who laid claim to Tver. Sever's competitor for many years was the thief in law Kamenei, who considered himself more worthy of the title of the main thief of Tver. And there were reasons for this. Kamenei not only lived his entire life in Tver, but was also the only native of the Tver region with a thief's title. A conflict of authorities was inevitable, but it was postponed by Kamenei's next term, which he was sent to serve in 2007 for 6 years. He presented his claims to the North in 2014, a year after his release. Kamenei provided the thieves community with facts against Sever, after which the latter lost both his thief's title and his post as overseer. The claims against Sever were as follows. First, Severov testified in court during a criminal case against a certain Tver crime boss. Second, Severov officially acknowledged himself as the injured party, filing a lawsuit to compensate for material damages for the prison administration's refusal to release him under an amnesty. A thief in law and the court can only be on opposite sides of the barricades. A thief as a victim is nonsense. As a result of a meeting in May 2014, Sever's thieving powers were stopped by the thief-in-law Kamenei. None of the thieves challenged his decision. Nevertheless, the criminal world luminary was treated with respect, and they did without sending out to the zones the pompous runs with insults towards the dethroned thief that are customary in such cases. The thieves took into account the fact that in recent years Sever had serious problems with drug addiction. The lawman agreed that his behavior, which was inadequate by thieves' standards, was caused by his illness, and he simply did not know what he was doing, and therefore, it was time for him to retire due to health reasons. Sever currently lives with his wife in a country house in the Tver region, and leads a quiet pensioner's lifestyle. Yuri Tishenkov was born in Tumen on February 29, 1952. He was first sent to prison at the age of 16. In total, Hans's service record includes 6 convictions and more than 27 years of total camp service. He served his first 3 terms, totaling 10 years for hooliganism, 2 more for theft, and his last criminal case was opened on charges of banditry and premeditated murder. As his coronation took place in July of 2000 on a ferry in Nizhny Tavr, in the presence of thieves Bart Melenkey, Sliver, Zaitok, Baldin and Steper Murmansky. At the same time, the gang made him the overseer of Tumen. During his 7 years as overseer, Tishankov rapidly increased his forces, including more and more territories in his zone of influence. Over time, his appetites began to irritate the thieves in law in the regions neighboring Tumen. In particular, in 2007, Hans had sharp contradictions with the Moscow and Yekaterinburg thieves on the basis of the redistribution of the sphere of influence in the areas bordering Kazakhstan, namely control over customs posts through which contraband supply channels passed. Clouds began to gather over Hans at the beginning of 2000. They say that with a request to resolve the conflict they turned to the Yabanchik himself, who called Hans to sort out the situation. But Tishankov dared to be rude to him in this telephone conversation. On January 30, 2008, a meeting was held in Moscow, at which his personal issue was discussed, and in particular that very conflict over customs. The Tumen region was represented by thief's son-in-law and Azat. Hans himself ignored the invitation to the meeting, which further aggravated his situation. Muscovites recognized his behavior as unthiefly and made a decision to remove the crown from him in absentia. Repeatedly avoided meeting Tishnar, Kolgo in April of the same year still managed to pull Moscow on the 16th of April too, and a new meeting took place already with the participation of such mastodons of the criminal world as Voskresin, Pichikervagan, and Skiff. This meeting Hans would not have been able to ignore, as was to be expected. Personal presence of Hans did not help him not to settle the conflict. The decision in absentia on not crowning Tishankov was confirmed and brought to his personal attention. Based on the results of the meeting, a run-through of the following content was drawn up. Brothers, I greet you and all decent prisoners. We appeal to everyone with this run-through so that there is no fermentation and misunderstandings. At the moment, Hans is not a thief. This is the decision of the mass of thieves. Do not address him as a thief. No decisions. He has no right to make them. Who will go against this run? There will be strict demand, as is proper in our life. Good luck to all the tramps and decent people. Be friendly, and united thieves Vetlak Sariger, son-in-law Back Plum Kostir Gizir Timur Sverdlovsk Skif Andriy Senker Samara Vasir Voskers Pichiger Eurovagan Vover, and Massa thieves who were at the meeting of the 16th 04th. The run was written in the presence of Sanyar Babanar Sariger Petroshenko on the 10th of November 2009, a year and a half after his coronation. Tishankov was detained in Tumen for murder. On December 2010, the Tumen Regional Court sentenced him to 12 years of strict regime under Article 33, Part 3 and Article 5, Part 2 of the Criminal Code of the Russian Federation, with the term beginning on November 10, 2009 and ending on November 9, 2021. Yerevan native Vardan Satrian, also known as J. Yeravansky, was crowned in 1988 in Yerevan, at the age of 25, by Aramits and Pavardks Yeravansky, Achos Shestabli, and Rantik. The fact that he was crowned quite an adult, and even at the instigation of the Aganov brothers themselves, left no doubt about the worthiness of the J. However, Vardan began to use hard drugs, as a result of which he very quickly lost control of his addiction before losing his thief's crown. Vardan Satrian, who had been convicted multiple times, was brought to criminal responsibility 5 times for illegal possession of drugs. He was last detained in November 2007 at Domodedovo Airport upon arrival from Kiev for smuggling. Powers were suspended for actions that contradicted the code of conduct of a thief in law. The thirst for easy money and the inability to realistically assess the situation due to systematic clouding of consciousness led him to a rather strange activity for a thief in law. BJ was engaged in the kidnapping of children from wealthy Armenian families, but outwardly tried to present the matter as if his role was limited to only acting as an intermediary in the transfer of the ransom. When one of the parents of the kidnapped child gave a Satrian part of the amount and turned to grandfather Hassan for help, he called BG to him and asked if he had anything to do with the kidnappings. BG denied any involvement. Hassan asked if he had given the kidnappers money. He nodded affirmatively. After that, Hassan said that if BG had nothing to do with it, let him name the kidnappers. which Bishi stated that he did not know who he had given the money to. Yuzan again asked how he had given it to them if he did not know who. Bishi replied that he had given the money through the window to the people in the car that had pulled up. Hassan reminded him that he was not being questioned by the police, but was talking to the thieves. Then Bishi suddenly named his accomplice, Alexid, and nicknamed Cash, to whom he had allegedly given the money. However, Hassan had already made inquiries on the matter, and Cash was in the next room when he was invited. He said that he had not received any money from B. After this, Hassan slapped B and declared him not a thief. Oddly enough, after Hassan's murder, he tried to restore his rights by declaring at one of the meetings that he disagreed with the decision. However, met with stiff resistance in the person of Sergei Osatrian, the younger Sturgeon, who reminded him why he was dethroned and beat him up in the presence of other thieves. The last time MJ appeared in the news was in April, when the Brusnensky court of Moscow charged Vardan Osatrian with illegal possession of drugs on a large scale. He was found to have 15 grams of heroin, according to the case materials. MJ Yeravansky suffered from an organic personality disorder, the cause of which was mixed diseases, including a hereditary history of alcoholism, deviant behavior caused by traumatic brain injuries and systematic drug abuse and opioids. On June 25, 2019, the Brusnensky Court of Moscow sentenced him to 4 years in a general regime penal colony under Article 220, Part 2 of the Criminal Code of the Russian Federation, with the beginning of the term on 07/2018 and the end of the term on 07/2022. Alexei Ivanovich Solomatin, also known as Solomer, was born on February 7, 1978 in Pashovo, Tula Oblast. Solomer was crowned in Turkey in 2013 along with such thieves as Babin, Nokri, Romer Stavropolsky, Lexo Dartu Ostin, and Tulin's brother Anik Salakov is considered Solomer's godfather. However, already in November 2015, Solomer was decrowned in Moscow by Shakro Molodoy's team. As a result of a personnel audit organized by Shakro, who had returned from Spain, Solomer's coronation was declared invalid and his thief's title was revoked. According to the participants of the meeting, represented by Nadar Jayadilvani, Pot Malmi, and even Vassar Voskus himself, Solomer was elevated to the rank with gross violations of thieves' traditions and subsequently, as a thief, did not prove himself in any way and therefore is no longer worthy of being one. The main official complaint was Solomer's minibus business in the Tula region. None of the thieves who knew him before they approached him, except for Arif, who lived in the Tula region for some time, named Solomer. And none of the thieves put in a good word for him, including Arif. A month before this, Solomer supported the blonde man's claim against the Voroner Stifolik Plotnikov, who was ultimately supported by Shakro anyway. On top of that, Solomer seriously turned his elders against him. First he aroused Pakov's jealousy when he became close to Bichika. Then he fell out of favor with Guli when he denied to Parpelier the execution of Ravshin and Takai, stating that he had been misled. After Solomer's overthrow, the reins of power in the Tula region were handed over to the Shakro family's protege, the pledge Roman Baranov. Despite the decision, Solomer did not agree with it and continued to call himself a thief, for which in December 2017 he was admitted to intensive care with a severe head injury, but after his release in March 2020, Solomer withdrew completely, cutting off relations with his former social circle. They say that in the last months of his life he regularly used heroin. Solomatin died on September 4, 2020. He passed away in his sleep on the night between September 3 and 4. Oleg Menlyan, a native of Sochi, was crowned thieves in 1997 at the age of 24, together with Arta Krasnodarsky in Moscow, and then De Hassan of Tashkent and Shakro Molodoy, as Krasnodar law enforcement officers wrote. In the Krasnodar territory, Alec headed a criminal group specializing in committing serious and especially serious crimes of an economic and according to available information. Alek Sachinsky controlled a number of commercial facilities located in Sochi and adjacent areas of the Black Sea coast of Krasnodar Krai. In particular, Menelian was credited with control over part of the seaport in Tuapse, as well as enterprises of the hotel complex. On March 29, 2007, previously unconvicted Menelian was detained at the entrance to Krasnodar by officers of the main directorate of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Russia for the Southern Federal District. During a personal search of the thief-in-law, a Makarov pistol with 8 rounds of ammunition was found and confiscated. Just 2 months later, Alec was given a suspended sentence of 1 year and released from custody. It is no secret that the operatives who detained Menelian were outraged by the judge's lenient sentence. Meanwhile, the authority of the thief-in-law began to steadily decline in proportion to the growth of his income. If Menelian was previously predicted to have a great future and was prepared for the role of overseer of the regional common fund, then recently the powers that be have ceased to show him their former trust. At first, Alec was reproached for living in luxury, throwing money around and thereby discrediting his thieves' name, creating grounds for the most unflattering rumors. And then they even began to suspect him of embezzling the common fund. In the end, Grandpa Hassan, who had crowned him, turned his back on Alec. It was a matter of time before Menelian was stripped of his crown, and on January 20, 2009, a thieves' meeting in the SV Cafe on Selesnev Street in Krasnodar, Menelian was suspended in his powers and charged with squandering the common fund. He was not recognized by the thieves from the Dehessan clan. Skif, Vadik Krasnodarsky, Romer Krasnodarsky, Darto Krasnodarsky, Koba Rostavsky, Petso Volchak, Artur Krasnodarsky, Lev Marnyalsky, and Dehessan's right hand in the Krasnodar region, Armen Yuchunin, also known as Armen Kainsky. Alec cherished the hope of justifying himself before the community and regaining his title, counting on the favor of Grandfather Hassan, despite the fact that most of his former colleagues had no doubt that he would not succeed. 3 weeks after the decrowning, on February 6, 2009, he was shot dead on Initiative Street in Moscow. Menelian was buried on February 12, 2009 in Baranovka in Sochi. Hundreds of people came to see Menelian off on his final journey, including well-known businessmen in the city and even the deputy city prosecutor. However, no thieves-in-law or lower-ranking authorities were seen among the mourners at the cemetery. Amasakov Mersely Muzikovich, also known as Korishkir, which is translated from Korojiske's wolf, was born on April 6, 1975 in Saratov. He is not remarkable for his thieving activities, but the story of his coronation and crowning attracted the attention of many, partly because of who crowned him. He was approached by the odious and notorious Chechen thief-in-law Aziz Bachakiv, who is considered an impostor by many in Kyrgyzstan itself. On April 9, 2014, Aziz Bachakiv, a native of the city of Takmak, who had previously been convicted multiple times, was released from prison on parole due to health reasons by the decision of the Naran City Court. He was allegedly diagnosed with terminal cancer. That same day, the thief-in-law flew to Chechnya on a private flight. Despite the fatal diagnosis, thanks to which Aziz was released, 7 years later his health has not worsened at all. It took the Kyrgyz authorities a year to understand that they had been deceived, and on April 30, 2015, the Naran court overturned its own decision to release Bachakiv, on the basis of which the thief-in-law was put on the international wanted list. Kyrgyzstan demanded that the Chechen authorities extradite Bachakiv to them. However, Chechen law enforcement officials formally extend his imprisonment under various pretexts. In fact, he is practically free in Chechnya, but in order to keep his possessions under control, he needed his own protege in Kyrgyzstan, for which Karishchir was chosen. Umazakov was crowned in Grozny city in the city of Grozny by the thieves Aziz Bachakiv, Timur Saratovsky, Shemel Smolyansky, and Islam the Great. On July 1, 2015, Mursalim Umazakov was detained with 36.1 grams of hashish in New Moscow by the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Russia while implementing operational information received from their Kyrgyz colleagues. Before that, Krishkia had been visiting his patron in Grozny for 2 weeks. On June 3, 2015, he arrived at the DVA Butika pretrial detention center. At that time, Islam Bolshoi, Georgy Tbilisi, and Gleb Kanishemsky were there. Ironically, all 3 thieves who had been recruited by Aziz for Murzakov's coronation gathered in different Moscow pretrial detention centers. This circumstance, it would seem, promised the Korishkir a quiet existence. However, events unfolded according to a completely different scenario. After arriving at Butika, where Morzakov hastened to appear, the thieves Islam Bolshoi and Georgy Tbilisi, who were there, informed the prisoners that he was an impostor. Bashar was declared an impostor despite the fact that he was crowned according to all the rules. Moreover, Islam Bolshoi, who was one of those who crowned him, took part in his decrowning. This happened because the status of Aziz Bachikiev himself, on whose initiative Rizakov was crowned, was in question from the very beginning of his thief's career. The fact is that Aziz called himself a thief, but he could not explain who, where and when crowned him, in connection with which first the main authority of Kyrgyzstan Rezbek Akhmetbiev, and after his death the protege of grandfather Hassan Kachabek Kalbiev, openly called him an impostor. Of course, only thieves can crown a thief in law. For this reason, Karashkiri got into trouble, becoming a pawn in someone else's game. With Karashkiri and Bachikayev, everything is clear, but why Islam Bolshoi signed the coronation of Karashkir, and then just as easily recognized him as an impostor, remains a mystery. Kushnarov Alexander Viktorovich, also known as Kushner Gomelsky, was born on July 29, 1966. Sasha Kushner is a man with a unique fate, who lost the title of thief 3 times and got it back twice. However, this time it seems he finally lost it for good on May 12, 2011. At the age of 44 he was crowned, together with circus performer Jelani Seti, Shamil Smolyansky and Armin Kakar in the restaurant Karatny Dvor, which was considered the unofficial office of grandfather Hassan. These Chebdurasher, Vover Pocky, Zuzia, Zayatak, Bajev Bakinsky, Timur Sverdlovsky, Sukach, Mayan, Voskers and Grandpa Hassan himself. But 2 weeks later, on May 25, 2011, he was not recognized along with the aforementioned circus performer Shamil Smolyansky, Armin Kaki and Jelena Dim. Here is the text of the Ubuntu sent to the Caesar in columnar. Life to thieves. Greetings to all prisoners and decent people. We inform you that a bunch of scoundrels played a dirty game, made an approach to Tsarkat Sharma Jelani, Armin Kak, who are called thieves. Prisoners, know that they are nobodies and have no names. One of them, Kushner, is in your central prison. We will limit ourselves to wishing you luck. With respect, we, thieves, Adri Kutaisky Takai, Vasher, Kakar Parpalia, Ravshan, Roma Kurt, Seoger Vedlak, Dijanu Michaelabs Lashersen, Kuram Kutaisky, Timur Psycho Koki Kalier Kenchai, Azat, Marap Mafia, Oleg Kutaisky, Gutcher Kutaisky, Vadim Belai, Slaver Sleever. In October of the same year, 2011, he was again recognized together with the thief Armin Kok in Moscow, the thieves dead Hassan, Timur Sverdlovsky, Jair Dilini, Jelena Kardiver, Jezegowski, Vover Pocky, Emir Novorossiyski, Vajev Bakinsky, Jiri Galsky and Gaja Bakinsky. However, after the death of Hassan in 2013, Kushner's position was again shaken. Among the thieves, the issue of the illegal coronation of a number of new thieves by dead Hassan, who were contemptuously called stamps, was again raised. All active thieves of Belarus spoke out against Kushner, in response to which Kushner simply wrote a run in which he declared all of them not thieves. According to this run, Hate Minsky Gale, Mulu, Medvizhanak Gomelsky and Lead Borisovsky. On August 1, 2013, Kushner Gomelsky was recognized as not being a thief. A little less than 2 years later, the issue of Hassan's stamps was raised again, and on March 5, 2015, Kushner himself was recognized as a newer for the second time, along with Jelani Sidim, Shamil Smolyansky and Armin Kok at a meeting in Moscow. But now the meeting was led by the #1 thief-in-law Shakro Molodoy himself, which it would seem should have put an end to Kushner's thief career. However, Kushner's fate again took an unexpected turn. Bakinsky, who had begun to strengthen his position, returned his title to him in exchange for support. Kushner was again recognized as a thief in 2016 in Turkey. Thieves Kyulia Akinsky, Namik Akinsky, Vover Pocky and Murab Pipey. However, on June 17, 2019, he was again not recognized at a meeting in Antalya by thieves Bahagahai, Medich and Kobersakomsky. Since July 14, 2020, he was not recognized in Minsk, a recently released thief from the Minsk Shtetls, with whom he had a long-standing conflict. Nevertheless, the Gili clan still considered him a thief, but after the death of Nadia Salafov in August 2020, Kushner was again left without support, and Belarusian thieves again came out against him. In January 2021, Kushner was brutally beaten with iron bars in Minsk. Kushner's former comrade Alexander Shulbert Scholz was behind the attack on Kushner. In 2019, Kushner, fearing the growth of Scholz's influence, spoiled relations with him by writing notes in which he spoke unflatteringly about his former confidant. Before beating up the authority, his own message about Scholz was read to him, and the attack itself was filmed. He was not recognized in Minsk. Thieves Slavosopoli Bartomsky and Pashtet Minsky And on March 3, 2021, Medvedchuk's run in IK-14 was released regarding Kushner and Lacey, in which Kushner was also declared not a thief. The next three lawmen that will be discussed fell victim to the criminal war between the clans of Dead Hassan and Tariel Aini. In the mid-2000s, the thieves' world was divided into two warring clans, the clan of Dead Hassan and the clan of Aini Dijangvaladze. Both Hassan and Taro regularly organized meetings where they declared each other and other thieves from the opposing clan not thieves. But on June 10, 2009, Taro was detained by MUR officers in the Odintsovo district of the Moscow region on charges of kidnapping a person 2 months after the arrest in August 2009. A thieves' letter was sent to the Matroskaya Tishina pretrial detention center, signed by 36 thieves in law, including Yabanchik and Dead Hassan. Here is the text of the letter. Life to the thieves, peace and prosperity to our common home and prosperity to the thieves' code. The reason for writing this term paper was the following circumstance, namely, we inform you, decent prisoners, that there is a person at the MTC. His name is Tariel Nayani. With the knowledge of the thieves, he is. If this person is with you when you meet, treat him accordingly. We will limit ourselves to this, wishing you, decent prisoners, all the best from the Lord God. And already 2 months after the release of this letter, in October 2009, 69-year-old Vyacheslav Ivankov, better known as Yabanchik, was shot dead in Moscow. Meanwhile, the Aini case was under investigation, and on July 19, 2010, the Komov-Meshesky Court of Moscow found Aini guilty under paragraphs A and said, Part 2, Article 126 of the Criminal Code of the Russian Federation kidnapping, and paragraph B, Part 3, Article 163 of the Criminal Code of the Russian Federation extortion, sentencing him to 10 years in prison. Haru was sent to serve his sentence in a penal colony in the Kemerovo region, where a new run was sent in May 2011. This time from 30 of his supporters that Taro is still a thief. This ended the first round of the Thieves' War. There was a relative lull for 2.5 years, and in January 2013, an unknown's neighbor in Moscow shot dead the leader of the criminal world Aslan Usain, better known as Dead Hassan. His associates quickly conducted an investigation. According to its results, the masterminds of the crime, the thieves in law Tariel Nayani and Merab Dijangvaladze, and the organizers were Jimo Miklads and Ravshan Dijaniev. Usain's associates held a meeting, at which, according to rumors, all 4 passed the death sentence. However, after Usain, the place of thief-in-law number 1 was taken by Zachary Kalashev, also known as Shakro Maladoy, who declared his goal to reconcile the warring clans and held a unifying meeting in Yerevan in 2015. The issue of the murder of grandfather Hassan was raised there, which remained open. The participants of the event decided that all issues would be resolved when all 4 thieves-in-law could personally express their position. Onyini, Dijangvaladze and Miklads were in prison by that time, and Dijaniev had settled in Istanbul and was in no hurry to meet with influential lawmen who could ask uncomfortable questions. Also, until Stero's confrontation, all the showdowns around the letter about his crowning, signed by a large group of lawmen, including Pichiker and Georgy Sorokin, Jorik Hashkensky, were postponed. Nevertheless, following the meeting, Aniarny and Dijangvaladze retained their thieves' titles, but Dijarma and Ravshan were deprived of them, which I will talk about later. In the spring of 2016, Merab Dijangvaladze was released from an Italian prison, who preferred to settle closer to Ravshan. He also settled in Turkey, only not in Istanbul, but in Antalya. Merab was not particularly active, exactly until Zachary Kalashev was arrested in August 2016. After that, Ravshan and Merab became noticeably more active. They constantly tried to hold various gatherings. They started to sort things out around the letter about Annie and his crowning, on which Shakro was placed on a moratorium from the Yerevan trial. And in July of 2016, Aniarny Dijangvaladze clan began to act. Members of Ravshan's brigade caught the lawman Georgy Sorokin, also known as Oratashkatsky, beat him up and declared him a newer, precisely for signing under Malyavar about depriving the second Rovsky title. The jury also ordered Tashkensky to say hello to another signatory, Pichiker, and promised that he would be next. In the thieves' world, this act, to put it mildly, caused an ambiguous reaction. Firstly, Shakro's moratorium was violated. Secondly, Sorokin had been living in Antalya for over a year, and the reprisal against him was carried out only after Kalashev's arrest, which did not look very nice. Sorokin Georgy Nikolaevich, also known as Oratashkinsky, was born on May 5, 1972 in Tashkent. In 1990, he was crowned in Moscow by the thieves Yuliash Bastanitsky, and then Tashkansky and Rudik Bakinsky himself, who approached him. After Rudik's death, Jora joined his worst enemy, grandfather Hassan, whom many, including the deceased's brother, accused of the death of the elder Aganov. And in 2009, he signed the fatal run along Ayani, which came back to haunt him in 2016. After Jora's beating and debunking, nothing more was heard of him. Porvy Zakon Miklads Jamal Jamilovich, also known as Jarmo, was born on March 2, 1975 in Tbilisi. His father was Jamal Miklads Asar, known by the nickname Arson. Dijimo was crowned in Moscow by thieves in law Shakro the Young, Tariel Anyani, Shakro the Old, and Robert. As was said earlier, Dijimo Miklads was considered one of the key figures in the notorious conflict of thieves' clans, one of the victims of which in January 2013 was the notorious Aslan Uzayan, Akadad Hassan. Uzayan's elimination took place 2 weeks after Miklads' secret return to Moscow, which gave his opponents grounds to connect these two events together, and law enforcement agencies to work on the opponent's version. 2 weeks later, Dijimo was detained at his country residence with a hand grenade and cocaine. On March 17, 2013, the following message was received at Kashira Pretrial Detention Center No. 5, where Dijimo was being held. Life to thieves, prosperity to the thieves' family, to our home, peace and well-being. We greet the thieves people of Kashira Central with a lot of best wishes. The following circumstances were the reason for writing this run. There is a certain Dijimo Miklads at the Central. Do not address him as a thief, since he is not a thief. For all general questions, contact the thief Makotbalisky. That's all for now. For the respectable people of Kashira Central, unity, mutual understanding, cohesion, lock in all endeavors for the benefit of the prosperity of the thieves' course, under the arches of our home. With respect to all worthy, Mary Lecker Zabarver Mayan Onik Albert, Valery Tbiliski. However, Anian Dijangvalad's clan did not agree with this decision. The rest of the thieves decided to hold off on such radical measures until there was evidence of Jimo's guilt. Having quietly served 1.5 years in Kashira, some 2 months before his release, Dijimo ended up in Moscow's Budyakar, where an evil fate brought him together with principled opponents from an unfriendly-year-old Vajiv Suleimanov and 30-year-old Zedvard Asmanov. On June 2, 2014, he was beaten in Budyakar by Vajiv and Zedvard. By the end of the day, the following thieves' run was brought to the attention of the prisoners from decent huts, or life to thieves, peace and prosperity to our common home. An ode to thieves to prosper and grow stronger forever. Run. We warmly welcome all decent people of Budyakar Central. We inform you that today, at 0206-2014, Miklads Jarmo came to our house. He is a nobody, and has no name. We, the thieves in Adjabekinsk and Zedvard Tbiliski, beat him like the last scoundrel. Ajay Kuteskov's presence was impossible due to the fact that he went to court. From now on, the thieves at large will put an end to his fate in accordance with his actions. We will limit ourselves to this, wishing you mutual understanding, good luck and all the best from the law. Sincerely to you, very Vajiv is dear Tbiliski. It is no secret that during the 1.5 years that Dijimo spent in Kashira, in relation to him, the grandfathers, to whom Zedvard and Vajiv can be attributed with full responsibility, repeatedly wrote runs that contained much more offensive definitions of his status than anyone. However, until now, none of the numerous netrogs managed to reach the younger Miklads personally. After that beating, as they say, the most severe in his life, Dijimo Povarovsky never recovered. 6 months later, on January 6, 2015, the largest gathering of thieves in law in the last decade took place near Yerevan. The gathering was attended by the then #1 thief in law, Zachary Kalash of Shakro Molodoy, and the current #1 thief in law, Oleg Shishkin of Shishin, people whose authority in the criminal world is unquestionable. This meant that all decisions made at the gathering would be final. It was at this gathering that it was decided to finally strip Jemway and Ratchin of their titles. While the investigation into Miklad's case was underway in Russia, he was put on the wanted list by the Italian authorities to Interpol. In Italy, the crime boss was accused of creating a criminal organization, extortion and money laundering. In June 2014, Michaeladz was sentenced in absentia by the Bury City Court to 15 years in prison and placed on the international wanted list. On March 1, 2016, after serving a 3-year sentence for possession of a grenade and cocaine, Dijima was detained in Kemerovo for subsequent extradition to Italy, and on January 20, 2017, from Sheremetyevo Airport, on a Moscow-Rome flight, thief-in-law Jamal Michaeladz was extradited to Italy, and 2 years later, on March 1, 2019. In Italy, in the city of Bari, 43-year-old Jamal Michaeladz died. The cause of death was not named by the Italian authorities. A native of the Azerbaijani city of Lankaran, Ravshan Janiev, also known as Ravshan Lenkaransky, was perhaps one of the most famous and influential thieves in law in the CIS. In June 2001, at the age of 26, he was crowned in Moscow by thieves-in-law Chingiz Sedoy, Seymur Nardaransky, Gojar Bakovsky and Arctic. In the evening of August 17, 2016, in Istanbul, on Barbaros Boulevard, Ravshan Lenkaransky's Range Rover came under heavy fire. The thief-in-law was taken to the hospital with multiple wounds where he died. According to rumors, he was sentenced to death back in 2013, immediately after the murder of criminal General Aslan Yuzayan. As was said earlier, the final decision on Jamal Ravshan was made at the Yerevan Assembly in 2015. Following the meeting, Eniani and Djangvaladze retained their thieves' titles, but Djamai and Ravshan were stripped. However, the latter continued to consider himself a thief. Another group of criminal generals held the same opinion. Ed Hassan's clan had been seeking to strip all 4 of their titles since the day of Yuzayan's death. However, the decision on Ravshan and Djarma was only made in. This was mainly due to information released by the Italian police. According to the Italian police, it was on the territory of this country that the murder of Aslan Yuzayan, nicknamed Ed Hassan, was planned. On September 18, 2012, the leader of the thieves clan opposing Ed Hassan, Muradjan Gviladze Murabsakumsky, gathered his closest associates in Rome. Among them were Jamal Michaeladze, Ravshan Djaniev and a number of other lawmen. The criminal generals primarily discussed their protracted war with the clan of Ed Hassan. Also, according to the Italian police, a telephone conversation took place between Murab and Taro. Djangvaladze told Nyarna that the thieves-in-law were deciding what to do with Yuzayan. This Taro, according to the records of the Carabinieri, responded briefly, "Cancel it, and all the problems will disappear." Vitali believes that it was after this conversation at the meeting that the death sentence was passed on grandfather Hassan, which Jamu and other people of Ravshan carried out. In addition, over the past 2 years other details have come to light. It turned out that people from Ravshan were seen at the scene of the murder, and his close associate, the thief-in-law Rufat Ganer, was detained by the police as a suspect in the murder of grandfather Hassan. Ravshan himself refused to appear at the meeting, where he could have clarified the matter, and took refuge in Istanbul, which further increased the suspicions against him. As a result, in 2015 he lost his thief's title with the approval of the then #1 thief-in-law, Shakro Moladoy. Nevertheless, Ravshan was buried with all thieves' honors. Thousands of people took part in the funeral ceremony, which took place in his hometown of Lankaran.